Today, I'm going to break down the top quarterbacks in the 2026 Dynasty rookie class. Let's just jump right into it with the number one quarterback in this class, and that is Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana. Now, if you haven't followed college football at all this season, Indiana is having another incredible season led by Mendoza and this incredible offense. Statistically, Mendoza has been very good this season. He ranks second in among all the Power 4 quarterbacks in touchdowns with 25, and he only has 4 interceptions. He's taken care of the ball very well this season. Mendoza has just done everything that this Indiana team has asked of him. He can air the ball out downfield. He has a lot of big plays under his belt. He's extremely accurate throwing from the pocket. He gets outside of the pocket as well. He's by no means an elite rusher, but he has the mobility to get outside the pocket, pick up yards, pick up touchdowns on the ground. He's just overall done everything that they have asked for him this season. Now, production in college at the quarterback position can be somewhat misleading. You get a lot of highly productive quarterbacks in college that have very bad NFL careers or just aren't drafted highly in the first place. Now, with Mendoza, a lot of the things that NFL teams look for are there. He absolutely has an NFL-level arm. He has that arm talent, that arm strength. He has very good accuracy at all levels of the field. He's mobile enough to pick up yards when given to him to get outside of the pocket, and he's also large enough to be used as a rusher on the goal line in short yardage situations, and that size is really something that stands out. He is 6'5", 225 pounds, and at the quarterback position, that is incredible. Now, something really important for me in quarterback profiles is that they aren't a one-year starter. We are going to have some one-year starters on this list. This isn't the deepest quarterback class, but Mendoza has a good amount of starting experience coming into this season. He started 19 games over the last 2 seasons at Cal before transferring to Indiana this season as the starter. In today's NFL, there's just no patience for developing quarterbacks. So we can argue about whether that's a good thing, a bad thing for the game, but it is the reality right now. So players like Mendoza that already have multiple years of starting experience, that show more poise, more consistency, those are the kind of prospects that are going to be much higher on my boards than one-year starters that have looked very good, but just 1 year of experience. Mendoza has beat up on a lot of bad teams, and you want your good quarterbacks to do that. In college, they should be beating up on these lower programs, but Mendoza also has a standout performance against a top-ranked team. He played Illinois, where Illinois was actually ranked above Indiana at the time. He threw for 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and only had 2 incompletions the whole game. Now, Mendoza's worst game of the season was probably against the other ranked opponent they faced in Oregon, but even in that bad game for him, he still looked okay. There weren't a whole lot of mistakes. He just played a very good defense, and that's what's going to happen. Now, one thing that sticks out in Mendoza's profile from a fantasy perspective is his ability to rush for touchdowns. He's not going to be a big yardage guy. He's not going to rush for 50 yards a game or anything like that in the NFL, but he does look like he can be capable of being used around the goal line as a rusher. He has multiple scores in that scenario already this season, and if that's a way he's used in the NFL, then that's going to be very good for his fantasy profile. Now, I'm not going to sit around and say that Mendoza is Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow or Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't have that kind of pedigree as a prospect. He does look very good on tape, though. You see a lot of the things come through on film, his ability at all levels of the field, arm strength, a little bit of mobility. It's something that I see a true NFL prospect here. And in a class with no Caleb Williams or Trevor Lawrence, he is, I think, going to be the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Number 2 in my quarterback rankings is going to be a little bit contentious, and I still have LaNorris Sellers here. So right off the bat, Sellers' numbers don't look good this season. His team has been terrible. The South Carolina offense has not been good. Sellers hasn't been perfect by any means, but I'm going to outline why the numbers aren't reflective of what Sellers is and what Sellers could be for fantasy. Now, first of all, South Carolina has one of the worst offensive lines of any of the Power 4 teams. It is absolutely horrendous. This season, Sellers has faced pressure on 45% of his dropbacks. That's second among Power 4 QBs this season. For comparison, Mendoza's faced pressure on 27% of his dropbacks. So almost double the amount of time Sellers is getting pressured than Mendoza. Now, it's obvious that the skill of an offensive line, the performance of an offensive line, can drastically impact how a quarterback looks behind them. When I'm watching tape on the other guys in this class, it's obvious the amount of time they have to sit back, wait for plays to develop, for the receivers to get open, and then make those reads and those throws. Sellers just doesn't have that opportunity almost ever. Sellers has faced an incredibly difficult schedule this season, especially recently. His three most recent games have all been against ranked teams, and even before those three ranked games, he played against LSU, who was ranked at the time. He's also faced in Missouri and Vanderbilt this season, two more ranked teams. Well, you absolutely want your quarterback to pick up their level of play when facing that top competition. There is just a reality of a difference in talent levels. The offensive line is obviously terrible for this team, leading to Sellers not having any time against these top teams, against this top competition. And another important aspect here is that there's just no separation by his receivers. Watching the film, even the odd time when Sellers does have a little bit of time to operate, no one is getting open downfield for him. He doesn't really have any exceptional playmakers, and it really shows on film. Okay, so I've outlined why Sellers is in a very bad situation, bad offensive line, not great weapons around him, and an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. But that alone doesn't make him a top prospect, obviously. There needs to be something there, a reason why he should be included this high on a list. And that's because things do jump out on film for him. Watching film is just extremely frustrating with Sellers because you see a ton of very good plays, him throwing balls into tight windows, anticipating receivers' movements very well, an incredible arm, a great deep ball. But these receivers just aren't making plays on the ball. Not only are they not getting separation to give him easy throws, but when he's making these very difficult throws, they're one, just dropping the ball, or two, making terrible efforts to try and track it or make a catch through a difficult contact. Now, of the quarterbacks I have on this list, Sellers has by far the highest percentage of his passes dropped by his wide receivers, and that's just plays that are considered drops. There's so many more beyond that, where Sellers into a tight window fits a ball perfectly where only his receiver can get it, and the receiver just isn't able to handle it. It's not counted as a drop, it's a difficult catch, but it's a catch that any NFL wide receiver is going to make. And now the most important thing, the reason that Sellers is this high on this list, is because he is an absolute difference maker as a rusher. While the numbers don't necessarily reflect it, I think Sellers is clearly the best rushing quarterback among any Power 4 team in college football this season. At 6'3", 240 pounds, Sellers looks a lot like a Cam Newton out there in his ability as a rusher. He absolutely shrugs off pursuing defenders. Even in the pocket, he's able to break tackles. He's able to pick up extra yards down the field with his size as a rusher. Sellers would immediately become a top 5 rushing quarterback in the NFL if he gets a starting job. A stat that backs this up pretty well is his missed tackles forced. He has 39 on the season. That ranks first among Power 4 quarterbacks. Second on that list is at 28. So an incredible lead over second in that category of missed tackles forced. I think Sellers has all the skills to be a very good quarterback at the next level. He has the arm strength, the deep ball accuracy. He's shown the ability to fit balls into tight windows where only his receivers can get it. He just doesn't have the situation around him in college. It's very possible that Sellers doesn't declare this season because of how bad his situation has been. And in that case, I think he will transfer and have a great season and be an absolute top prospect for next year's class. But if he does declare in this class, I think you can get a value on Sellers because his situation has just been so poor this season in college. Third on my list of 2026 rookie quarterbacks is Dante Moore out of Oregon. Now, Moore has been very good for an absolutely great Oregon squad this year. In almost all his games, he's shown poise in the pocket, the ability to find open receivers, for which there's a lot of in this Oregon offense, and some shiftiness as a rusher. Now, the reason I can't rank Moore any higher than this right now is that this Oregon offense is just so good. He has so much time in the pocket. There are always receivers wide open, and it's hard to tell whether he has exceptional skill or he is just good enough in a great offense. Now, that's further exasperated by his lack of a signature win this season. Some probably thought that Penn State win in week 5 was going to be one of those signature wins. Penn State was ranked, I think, 3rd at the time. It was very obvious that Penn State had just played poor competition to that point, and they never deserved anywhere close to being a top 3 team, let alone even a ranked team. The only other game Moore has played against top competition is against Indiana and Fernando Mendoza, and he looked awful in that game. Like, this was not you played a good defense and struggled a little bit. This was an outright disaster, and he lost his team that game. In the game, he threw for 186 yards, 2 interceptions against 1 touchdown. And it's even worse when you watch the game. I watched this one live, and he had one good play the entire day, and it was just an absolute breakdown. A receiver was uncovered by 15 yards in any direction, and it was just a lob in for a 44-yard touchdown, an absolute gimme that anyone would have taken advantage of. So you take that off the board, and really there was nothing he did good all game. Now, prior to that Indiana game, he'd only been sacked 1 time all season. In that Indiana game, he was sacked 6, maybe 7 times. So the pressure obviously got to him once they faced a team capable of generating any pressure against him. And this is what I mean. This Oregon offense is so well designed. It is so good that it absolutely spoon feeds Moore a lot of opportunities. That's not to say he isn't a good quarterback. I do think Moore is a good quarterback. I wouldn't have him at 3rd on my rankings if I didn't. But there's definitely questions about what he can do against top competition. I don't want to get too negative here on Moore, because that's what it's starting to sound like, but I think he is a good prospect. He takes very good advantage of the situations that this offense brings to him. He does well when he has time in the pocket. He finds open receivers. He's very consistent about that. He's had very good accuracy most of the time this season. Obviously, that Indiana game being an outlier against top competition, but he's had good accuracy as a passer. And as a runner, he's kind of an interesting type there. He looks a little smaller on tape. I think he's under 210 pounds, so not a very big player, but he runs a little bit like Kyler Murray, that very quick, very shifty kind of running style. He's definitely not as good of a rusher as Kyler Murray, but that's the kind of style he plays with. I do think at the next level he'll be a plus rusher at the quarterback position, not by any means a top 5 at the position. This isn't Lamar Jackson or Jaden Daniels or Kyler Murray. But he will have some rushing upside. Even from a rushing perspective, though, he's a little limited because he's a smaller player. He doesn't have a single rushing touchdown this season, despite being a fairly good runner, and that's because the team just isn't going to use him around the goal line. He just doesn't have the size to be that kind of like a sneak or tush push kind of quarterback. Now, Moore will have a couple more chances to prove himself against top competition. They play USC and Washington, 2 ranked teams, to close out the regular season, and they will absolutely be in the college football playoffs unless there's an absolute implosion to close out this season by the Oregon team. If Moore can look good against top competition in those games, then I think he will very easily push up to the number 2 quarterback in this class and maybe even threaten Mendoza for that top spot. If that is the case, I think he, with the need in the NFL for starting quarterbacks, for young quarterbacks that teams can build around, I think he will get pushed up into the top 3 of the NFL draft if he can show that against top competition in college. And I said before that I very much value multi-year starting for college quarterbacks as an NFL prospect. Moore doesn't have that. He did start 5 games for UCLA back in 2023, so there is something there. But this is his first full season as a starter. Now on to my 4th ranked quarterback, and that is Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Now, Simpson is absolutely a first-year starter. This is all the experience he has, as he's been a backup up to this point in his college career. Now, Simpson's another case of a very good team. He has good weapons in Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard on his squad. While the offensive line hasn't been great in the run game this season at Alabama, they have looked very good holding up in pass protection. Now, I could give you a sample of 3 or 4 games that Simpson has played, and you would watch it and think he is the consensus, the clear number 1 quarterback in this class. But then there's a couple games that he's played as well, Florida State, South Carolina, where he has looked awful, like just downright terrible. Florida State was their first game of the season, and after watching that, I essentially wrote Simpson off. I went, okay, this guy's not going to be an NFL prospect. There's a lot to work through in his game. He was a first-year starter, so that wasn't all that surprising. But some very good games following that week 1 performance have put him back on my radar, and it's just hard to ignore how good he has been in those games. And the numbers across the season look quite good as well. 20-1 touchdowns to interceptions on the season is just it shows how well he's taken care of the ball, even in games where he has not looked good. Speaking of Simpson's accuracy, though, is game to game. There are some games where he looks like he has pinpoint accuracy, like he can't miss, and there's other games where wide open receivers are just consistently missed. Now, all of this is fairly unsurprising for a first-year starter for a top college program. There's going to be some bumps and bruises, there's going to be some ups and downs, and we're seeing that with Simpson. Now, I think he has the skills to grow into a very good NFL quarterback. He has good arm strength, he gets the ball out very quickly, and there's stretches where he looks incredibly accurate. But the inconsistencies make it clear that he is still a young quarterback, an undeveloped quarterback that needs more experience to prove himself as a real NFL talent. Now, like I said, the NFL just doesn't have patience for developing quarterbacks right now. It's all about who can perform on their rookie contract within the first couple of years, or you go straight to the bench. Now, we've seen highly touted quarterbacks, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold being 2 recent examples that were terrible on their rookie contracts for a poor organization, but then got it together as their careers went on. Now, we might see that more and more with these young college prospects, these inexperienced prospects like Simpson, but I'm not betting on my draft pick hitting in year 7 or 8 of their career. I'm just not confident that once he enters the NFL, that Simpson will have the skills to be an immediate impact player at the quarterback position, and it might have him replaced sooner than later. From a fantasy perspective, it's also important to note that Simpson doesn't have a whole lot as a rusher. He doesn't have the elite size at 6'2", 210 to be a great goal line threat, and he doesn't have the speed, acceleration, shiftiness to be all that great in the open field. He does have enough mobility to get outside of the pocket, and he does that very well to be able to throw on the run, create time for himself, but he's never going to be a plus rusher for fantasy. Now, 5th on my list, and the last quarterback I'm going to go into depth here on, is Cade Klubnik for Clemson. Now, Klubnik, at the end of last season, was expected to be the top or one of the top quarterbacks in this class. He had an incredible season. He was 9th among Power 4 quarterbacks in yards, 3rd in touchdowns, and 6th in fewest interceptions. As you can see, this season has not been nearly as good statistically. Klubnik has faced a little more adversity than before. Antonio Williams, his top wide receiver, has missed time early in the season with an injury. Klubnik himself missed some time with an ankle injury. Things just haven't gone well for this Clemson offense. But now with Klubnik back from his ankle injury, with Antonio Williams back on the field and up to speed, things are starting to look a lot better, a lot more like last season for Klubnik. You're starting to see those plus skills that you saw on film in 2024. He's not an elite rusher by any means, but he has very good mobility to get outside of the pocket, extend the time for him to let the defense develop or the offense develop and find a receiver downfield. He throws very accurately into tight windows, and he has a really solid deep ball. He connects on quite a few of them. Now, in a weaker class, at least not as deep of a class at quarterback like this one, I think Klubnik, his ability last year, if he can string together some good performances at the end of this year, NFL teams will be willing to overlook a bit of these early struggles that he had to start 2025. He's shown that he can produce at a high level. He's shown that he has some of these skills that are needed for NFL success. I think he's someone that an NFL front office will take a shot on as probably an early second round pick. Well, those 5 are the only 5 quarterbacks that I'm confident about ranking as actual NFL prospects, as actual fantasy relevant prospects so far this season. There are a few that are kind of on the bubble right now that could make some noise in NFL draft circles once we get to that season. So the first of those would be Sam Leavitt from Arizona State, an absolute incredible athlete. If he ever does get a chance to start in the NFL, he will be fantasy relevant just because of how dynamic he is on the ground. The problem is I just don't see enough actual skills as a quarterback, as a pocket passer, for him to make that jump into the NFL. He's been very inconsistent production-wise, and I don't see NFL front offices seeing him as a real prospect to be an NFL starting quarterback. Now, if the NFL proves me wrong on that, and he is even just a day 2 selection, then I think he deserves to be in the conversation as like a 3rd round rookie pick, similar to maybe like Milroe last year. Just in the off chance that they get an opportunity to start, they have that rushing upside for fantasy that you want on your team. Now, another one very different profile is Drew Aller, the Penn State quarterback. Now he's out for the rest of the season with an injury. And he's had one of the weirdest college careers where he's been hyped up as like the next Josh Allen. I've made the Josh Allen comparisons. But all those traits that can turn into Josh Allen also just were never showing up in the production. I was high on Aller. I thought if the production came around, then he was going to be a top prospect in this class. The production never came around. Now, his season was cut short due to injury, but he had plenty of starts to show that he could put it all together, and it just wasn't there. Now, it's possible that a front office will see all of those traits. He has ideal size, arm strength, and expect that he can put it together at the NFL level with some good coaching. And I'm not saying that's impossible by any means. He has a great upside, but the median case is just so low that I don't see him being a real difference maker for fantasy right now. And last here on the bubble is John Mateer out of Oklahoma. He's had a very good start to 2025. He was in conversation for Heisman for a first-round selection in the NFL draft, but he's fallen off hard since then. The stats have not looked good since his early season run. Now, he's very mobile, has some good arm talent, and there's just an excitement about watching him play. He's very fun to watch play. But there's just too many issues with his accuracy, with his ability in the pocket. I just don't necessarily see an NFL prospect there, and the production hasn't matched that of an NFL prospect either. While this may not be the best quarterback class we've seen in recent years, there is a very strong group of wide receivers and a very interesting running back class as well. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and check out our wide receiver and running back rankings for the 2026 class and get an idea of who will be on your rosters next year.